All right, let's keep it rolling here at the Voice of College Football. You know what the drill is. Amazon links in the description section of all the videos. It doesn't cost you a penny. Not a penny. And it's the same shopping experience. All right, let's go to our next caller. Believe we got something here. We got Michigan Man chiming in.
What's good, man?
What is good? What you got?
Hey, man, I'm going to be quick, man, but I just got to say something. I've been looking at some numbers. First, Michigan is the first team since the 93 Knowles to put up 30-plus points per game and hold their opponents to less than 7 points per game through 5 weeks. What you think about that? What you think about that?
1993 Florida State Seminoles. Let's see who they played that 5 games. Let's give that a look. I'm going to guess that those teams were better, just off the top of my head. I'm just taking a shot here. Florida State in 93. Give me 2 seconds. 93 was Kansas 42-zip. I actually remember that game. It was a kickoff classic. Duke 45-7. Clemson 57-zip. North Carolina 33-7. Georgia Tech 51-0. Listen to this. Okay, that Kansas team, not great, but still, they're a Power 5, 5-7. Duke, again, not a good team at all, 3-8, but a Power 5. That Clemson team was 9-3. That North Carolina team went 10-3, and the Georgia Tech team was 5-6.
Oh yeah, they play better teams, but I don't care who you play. To do something that hasn't been done.
I care who you play. There's a difference beating Clemson 57-0 and beating East Carolina.
Yeah, this is true. But to do
it's a great stat
that hasn't been done in almost 40 years.
Yeah, they've been dominant.
People say, "Oh, there's not a clear elite team." Michigan's showing you that they that team. Period. SP plus, they're number one. FPI, when you take out the recruiting rankings, number one. Hey, that's fine, man. That's fine. But they doing
anyone. I'm not saying that they're not elite. Let me be very clear. So I'm not saying they're not elite, but my goodness, there'd be all sorts of teams in the country that could possibly put up that. You don't think we could pick out?
No team has done that in 40 years, though.
Because teams have played better schedules.
You don't think in 40 years, out of 130 teams, that not one of those teams in 40 seasons has played a schedule similar to what Michigan's played?
Well, let's eliminate out of those 130 teams, eliminate 120 of them right out of the gate because they're just not capable of beating anybody 30-7 or whatever the criteria was every week. So first of all, just completely eliminate like everybody but about 10 teams a year.
Look, yeah, I'm not saying. Look, UNLV 4-1, Rutgers 4-1. Those two teams right there, not the best competition, but they're not playing absolute dirtbags every week.
No, they're not. They're playing just slightly dirty bags, I guess.
Yeah, no, look, I think anytime you do something, because look, teams have played bad schedules every year. No team has done this in 40 years.
Oh, I can name all sorts of teams that play bad schedules, but they're not supposed to be competing for national championships.
Well, yeah, no, I agree with that. But even teams that have competed for national championships that I'm sure there's teams that have had poor schedules, ain't doing what Michigan's done.
Yeah, I would love for you to show me one. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I'm not saying that they don't exist, but they may not exist, and if they do, they're extremely rare.
Oh yeah, no doubt, man. I'm just saying. I mean, this defense, like another stat, since 1941, there hasn't been I think it's a Michigan stat, but there hasn't been a Michigan team since it might even not be just a Michigan stat, but there hasn't been a Michigan team since 1941 to only give up 2 touchdowns in 5 weeks. And mind you, that the starting defense minus garbage time has only given up 13 points in 5 weeks. That's just ridiculous. Okay. They haven't allowed a team within the 10-yard line.
Okay, I'm just randomly, we're just starting down the list here. I'm just grabbing Ohio State from last season. That was not a great football team. They were well, they were one of the 3 or 4 best in the country, but they weren't a great football team. Well, they were playing Notre Dame, Arkansas State, Toledo, Wisconsin, and Rutgers to start. And they won by 11, 33, 56, and 31, and 39. And they're giving up 10, 12, 21, 21, 10. But in those games,
yeah, that's not even in the same realm.
It is in the same realm, because when they're giving up 21, they're scoring 77 against much better teams. They're scoring 77, 52 against Wisconsin. And that game was 28-0 in the first quarter. Like that, that seems more impressive to me than what Michigan just did. They played Notre Dame, Toledo, Wisconsin, and Rutgers during that stretch.
I think you're looking at the final score. I think it's more impressive. Also consider Michigan starters have only played 2.5 quarters in 4 out of 5 games. Then they play a fourth quarter, barely played the fourth quarter against Rutgers, and they played 2.5 quarters in 4 out of 5 games. Sure. They could have easily, if they left the starters in like Ohio State likes to do, if we're being real, if they left the starters in for the whole game, they put up 60 plus every game.
Well, again, you're the one spitting numbers, and I'm spitting numbers that are extremely similar against much better competition.
Yeah, but you also got to look what's going on in those games. Michigan is emptying the bench halfway through the third quarter in every game. The domination this team is putting up is reaching historic standards, regardless of who they play.
Ohio State in 2019, they won their first 5 games by 24, 42, 41, 69, and 41. And they were playing Cincinnati, an 11-3 team, Indiana, who went 8-5 and went to the Gator Bowl, and Nebraska.
What did they give up? And then were they emptying the bench halfway through the third quarter of every game?
Well, no, I don't know, but yes, they were emptying the bench at some point. They gave up 21, 0, 10, 5, and 7. So some of these are not on that. Some of these are
still not on that left.
Some of these are technicalities, you understand. You can do a lot of things with statistics. I think that's a much more impressive run against better teams. I'm just taking 2 of the last 3 Ohio State teams. We haven't even gone to Alabama and Georgia and who else? USC in the 2000s.
Oh, yeah. No, you're bringing up all. Let's be clear, though. You're bringing up our top teams that we've seen. And you're comparing them with Michigan. And even then, Michigan is still obviously opponent adjusted. Even then, what Michigan's doing on the field tops that.
Yeah, I don't see that it tops that. Again, I'm just not.
I mean, this looks like a 21 Georgia-esque defense. And I think they still got room to grow. That's the scary part.
Here's the 2007 Ohio State defensive performance. This is what they gave up. 6, 2, 14, 7, 7, 7, 3 to start the season.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I ain't going to say that that's not good. What did they do offensively?
38, 20, 33, 58, 30, 23, 48.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's probably the closest. In terms of like
Purdue was the best team that they played. They were 8-5. They didn't play, these teams weren't that good. They played Northwestern, Washington, a bad Washington team.
And I mean, we're being real.
That's impressive.
That's impressive.
Michigan did. Yes. What Michigan's doing is impressive. I'm not saying that it's not.
Oh yeah, man. I'm just never been more confident in Michigan winning a national championship than right now.
Here's Ohio State's 06 defensive run, and this is before, of course, they played the barn burner against Michigan, 42-39. Before that, 12, 7, 7, 6, 17, 7, 7, 3, 0, 10, 10. And that's Texas, Cincinnati, Penn State, Iowa, Michigan State, Minnesota.
I would love to go back and watch those teams and see how the games went too, as well. Sure. To see if was it close for 3 quarters in a lot of those games, which I kind of suspect it was. Trestle teams in particular.
Yeah,
I would kind of suspect that.
Yeah,
I would kind of suspect that, and if that's the case, if you look at this Michigan team, I think Joe Klatt had a perfect analogy for. He actually said, I don't know how you. I'd be terrified to play Michigan. He said that today. I'd be absolutely terrified. They're like a boa constrictor. He compared them to a boa constrictor. He's like it's being locked in a 6x6 room, and they just crushing the life out of you, and it's inevitable. Which I think is a perfect analogy, man. I know I'm being braggadocious right now, but I feel good.
I know you feel good.
But I'm gonna get going, man. I think Maryland can get it this weekend, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, man. So Michigan has scored at least 30 points per game and given up single digits. First team to do that since 1993. And again, I've offered up, I just went to Ohio State. That's the obvious comparison. Now I'm at Alabama. And you can imagine, there's basically an outlier where somebody scored like 12. So I found an Ohio State team that would meet that criteria, except for one team scored like 12 points instead of 10. But the offensive scoring is ridiculous. 56, 77.
We can only play the teams that we have scheduled. Now, do we have the best schedule? No, but you can't look at what we've done and say, we don't belong in the conversation, especially when you see Georgia. They played at South Carolina. North Carolina and their atrocious defense lived in South Carolina's backfield. I think they got, 9 sacks, 16 tackles for losses. This North Carolina defense was inept last year, and they just rocked South Carolina. And South Carolina lost by 10 in Athens. Yep. This is not a good Georgia team. It took them to the fourth quarter to beat Auburn. Auburn is horrible. Okay, so can we quit? Can we quit with this? Georgia, is alone on the hill thing, because they're not.
Okay, so this is where I will slice this down the middle, because everything you just stated is perfect, correct, accurate to a T. However, when a program has succeeded and brings back a load of NFL talent, there is a certain level of trust. When the coach is proven, when the players are proven, when the program's proven, all of that. Like if Ohio State went into Notre Dame and they were Maryland with Maryland's history and they had the same exact results, well, you can evaluate just the results on the field, and they did this against Western Kentucky and they did this against Indiana, and say, this is what I think about this team. But there's just a difference when you have a knowledge of the program, the talent, the coaching that's proven it year after year after year.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to take anything away from Georgia, but to think that, we're still technically the new kid on the block. I mean, we did go to back-to-back playoffs. If you take out these, the bowl games, we're 27-1 in the last 2 years. And that one loss was incredibly steeped in controversy, when I won't go into that because it'll just make me mad. But, people need to stop acting like, Michigan doesn't have a right to talk. Now, I'm not saying that, we're going to roll over everything, but, to act like, we're not a part of the conversation, some of these people are assuming this is just asinine.
Oh, absolutely. Michigan's a tremendous team, and they are the kings of the Big Ten. They own the Big Ten 2 consecutive years. And went to the playoff.
Yeah, and we can beat big teams. I mean, like I said, back-to-back Ohio State games, we've outscored you by 39 points. So, I mean, it's not like we're, foreign to winning big games. Now, have we, gotten to that Georgia level? No, but, I mean, it's just within our grasp. You just have to keep reaching. And I don't think, you can sit there and say, that because, we play a crappy non-con, which a lot of teams do. Like I said, Georgia's non-con is not good this year either, but it seems like they kind of get impervious to this conversation. I mean,
because they earned it.
Have we not? I mean, do you only
they've earned it,
Okay, and I get, but do you only get a pass if you have a national championship? So if you didn't win a national championship, that's a strike against you. Whereas Georgia's the one team that isn't.
Michigan's earned it within the Big Ten. I'm not saying that Michigan can't defeat all sorts of excellent teams outside the conference. I just want to see it.
I
just
like to
wanna
see it too.
It's been a long time, but it's not like they've lost a zillion of these games. They haven't played a lot of them. So they lost the last 2 playoff games, and then before that, you go back. They beat Notre Dame outside the conference in 19. Notre Dame was not an elite team. They were a good team, very good team.
We beat Washington a couple of years ago. I mean, now they weren't this year's Washington, but
no, they were 4-8.
Yeah,
they were terrible.
But the problem is there's always a lag because you schedule teams and you don't schedule them for the next year. You schedule them for 4, 5, 6 years.
Fault. That's not Michigan's fault that Washington was down. Yeah, of course.
I mean, I think that Michigan has deserved the benefit of the doubt. And if you look at our 5 games, I mean, these are not world beaters, but people are writing these, and I know Darrell was picking on me because what I said in the chat. UNLV is 4-1. They have a win against an SEC team. Bowling Green beat Georgia Tech by 18 points in Atlanta. I mean, Rutgers is 4-1, and their 4 wins. They beat. I don't think they had a win that's less than a 3-score win. So I mean, these are not fantastic teams, but these are still legitimate wins. And these were all wins where it was over in the third quarter. I mean, almost all these games, I mean, I'm seeing guys I've never even heard of on Michigan's roster playing in the third and fourth quarters. I didn't even know Donegal was our 4th string backup. I'm finding that out now. I mean, Michigan could have beaten a lot of these teams 60-0 if they were so inclined, but they don't. That's just not what Harbaugh does. He gets a lead, and then once it's obviously in the bag, then he starts pulling guys out of the stands to come in and suit up and play a couple downs. You can't hold that against us. I mean, unless you're just ignorant to football. So, I mean, I don't know what else people are wanting. And, hanging on to the whole, you lost to TCU, that got real old. You can't hold Georgia against us. Georgia was just a better team in 2021, obviously. We should have beat TCU last year. And if you play that game 10 times, we win 9. It was just a fluke that one time.
Yeah, and you have evidence to make that claim, but we don't know that, and that's a bit shallow of an argument. If they would play, I could say all sorts of things about what if or this could have happened.
You have to go by probabilities, though. I mean, yeah, anything could, quote unquote, happen, but Michigan was not the worst team there. I mean,
my example would be, my correlation to that would be Purdue killed Ohio State in 2018. Nothing else that happened that entire season would make anyone believe, because they play in the same conference against the same opponents, and Purdue lost 7 games and Ohio State lost 1 game and finished number 3 in the country and won the Rose Bowl in the Big Ten championship. So you've got 13 other results that say Ohio State's a much better team, but then that happened. It happened.
Yeah,
Where you had 2 teams that excelled the entire season, and then TCU won a close game, and we all know what happened. So that's where I differ on those 2, where if I played the role of the TCU fan, they have no reason to back down from the argument that they were just better.
I mean, I don't blame them, because they can just go by the result on the field that one game, that one day.
And because the rest of their season says that they were in the ballpark.
Yeah. And I'm not taking it away. They won 13 games that year, so I'm not going to write them off.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying about that. But I totally get your point, too. All you had to do is watch the game and see a team that blows a play at the goal line when they might have scored I thought they scored a touchdown on the pass in the end zone. Who was that? Roman Wilson?
Roman Wilson, yeah. He was balling out this year, I have to say.
And, the other play on the first drive of the game after the big Donovan Edwards, and they got cute and fancy down by the goal. All those, yeah, I get it.
I mean, if anything, it just shows that Michigan lost their composure, because if you couple that with the fumble at the one that never should have happened, plus JJ's 2 pick sixes, I mean, Michigan, I think they just got a little discombobulated and just couldn't get right. And Minter just completely dropped the ball on trying to adjust schematically. It seemed like they were just trying to do too much too fast. And, Michigan doesn't do that. Michigan isn't used to playing from behind. So when they get punched in the mouth early, they really couldn't respond. But, I mean, that doesn't happen very often. So they're not used to it.
And you're right, although they did respond. They were down, 24-3?
Well,
and they got back to a one-score game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you could just say we didn't lose, we just ran out of time. But, I mean, considering the fact that we spotted them 3 touchdowns. I mean, if you take that away, yeah, it would have been a complete massacre. But, we let them have the lead, and then we just, like I said, just ran out of time. So, I mean, I just don't understand people saying their excuses for why. And now I'm not going to go, all gung ho like Go Blue does, but I think there's a legitimate case to be made that Michigan is the best team in the country right now. But I'm not going to sit there and say they're definitely going to win the national championship. They're not, 71 Nebraska, 2019 LSU, 2001 Miami. But judging from what I've seen of Michigan and what I've seen from other teams, they deserve to be in the conversation. And if I had, in my poll right now, I'd have Michigan 1, followed by Texas and then Georgia. That's just me.
Okay, Mike. I can't say I'm surprised by you having Michigan number 1.
I mean, is it our fault that we didn't play Alabama and Jaden Daniel-less Kansas?
Well, that's part of the evaluation, though.
Yeah, I mean,
play.
And honestly, on a neutral field, I don't think that we would do any worse against Alabama than Texas. I mean, Alabama looks like a complete shell themselves. They have no offensive rhythm whatsoever.
Again, you're speaking about just things that are just complete conjecture. We're not talking about anything that's happened.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. When you go back to DeReal's 5 teams, versus the field.
Yeah.
If he took Georgia out of that 5, I would take the field. I mean, he put up 4 teams that I think right now have little to no. He said Alabama, no chance. Texas A&M, no chance. OSU, almost no chance. And what was the other one? Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M.
So
OSU.
You get offended by DeReal saying that Michigan has a 1% chance of winning the national championship, and you just said that Ohio State has virtually. So you're basically saying Ohio State has a 1% chance of winning the national championship.
I would go 5. High single digits.
And what's Michigan's chance?
15.
Okay.
15 to 20, maybe. But the only realistic teams I can see. Oh, yeah, he's at Texas. Texas has a pretty good chance. I just kind of count on the fact that Texas tends to lose 1 or 2 games they have no business losing. Like, I think last year it was Texas Tech. But, I mean, I don't think there's any, including this, coming Saturday at Red River, I don't think there's any game they should not be the clear favorite in. But I can't see them going 12-0. I mean, just from history. I mean, I would have Texas as probably right around 10-15% as well. I don't think there's any team I would put higher than 20% chance likely. I mean, I think even, 1 or 2 SEC, Pac-10 teams, Pac-12 teams could, take up a good chunk of. I'm not high on USC right now, but Oregon and Washington are definitely in the conversation.